All right, so for this video, we're going to set up a simple projectile. So like a fireball or something that the player can shoot. So I'm going to go to my asset folder first, and I'm going to find a sprite that will work for what I want. I'm going to check effects, super pixel projectiles, pack, sprite sheet, and I'll grab a fireball. Let's see which one I want. So I'm going to work with this Sure You Can large blue. Go in here, and just like before, I'll set the pixels per unit to be 32. Point filter, click no filter, apply, sprite editor. And it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different things. So I'll go to slice, by cell count, set this to 8, click slice. Yeah, and then click apply. And then I'm going to take the first one and the last one, click and drag these into my scene. Go to assets, animations, player anim, and I'll call this projectile. Now I'm going to take this item that we made here, and I'm going to rename this to be projectile, because we're going to make this a prefab later. I'm going to move this over where I can see it when I press play, and I'm going to press play to see what it looks like. So, simple kind of spitting animation. Great. Now we need to actually make it move. So to do that, we're going to, you guessed it, need to make a script. Asset folder, scripts, and I'm going to create a new script. This will be called projectile. I'll open that up. And for now, this is going to be actually fairly straightforward. First thing we need to do is we need to create a public float speed, so how fast we want it to move. And I don't need start, I'll get rid of that. But I do need update. This actually should be fixed update as well, so we'll do fixed update. And then for this one, we'll just do transform.position plus equals transform.right times time.delta time times speed. Now, what we did here is we're saying take the current position and then add to it so that way we move right. So it's going to always move to the right. And it's going to do that at a set speed as defined by the actual real time, not frame rate. Easy enough. We'll save that. Go back to Unity. We'll take the projectile and we will add the projectile script to it. And now if we press play, it should move over to the right. There we go. Now it's moving to the right. Great. But we don't have the ability to actually launch it yet. Now for this, we're going to need to make a new script. And we'll call this player combat. I'll go to my player character and I will attach this new player combat script. I'll minimize these just to make it easier to see. All right, so player combat script. I'll open this up. Now from here, all we need to do is, well, actually a couple different things we need to do, but the first thing we need to do is set up the ability to like click the button. So we'll do if input.get button down, parenthesis, and then I'll put the curly braces. Now, what button do we want? If we get, I'll put quotation marks, I'll do fire 1. So what this is saying in our input manager, if we press the left mouse button, do stuff. Now, what we want it to actually do is create a new prefab, or a new projectile rather. So I need to tell it what the projectile is. So I'll create a reference to a public projectile prefab. Now in here under update, we're going to create a new function called, we'll do void projectile attack. When we press the mouse button, we want to call that projectile attack function. But how do we actually make it? So the keyword here is going to be instantiate. So instantiate, it wants a few different things. Instantiate wants what we want it to make. So we'll give it the projectile prefab. And we need to tell it where to spawn it. Well, for that, we're going to need to create a projectile spawn point, which we'll set up in a second. I'll create a reference to public transform projectile spawn point. So at a certain point, we want to spawn a new projectile. So we'll pass it in here. Projectile spawn point dot position, and then transform dot rotation. This is saying create a prefab, create a projectile at a position that we define at the rotation of our our player. All right, so go ahead and save that, and we'll go into Unity. Here, I'm going to go to my asset folder, prefabs. I'm going to turn this projectile into a prefab. Go to my player character, and I now have a spot to drag that projectile prefab in there. But we need this projectile spawn point. What is that? Well, just like we had this ground check that checks if we're on the ground, we need to create a new spawn projectile point. So I'll select the player character, right click it, create empty, and this will be projectile spawn point. I'm going to take that and I'm going to drag it right in front of his hand. Then go to my player character and I give it that projectile spawn point. Now I want to be able to see this projectile spawn point where it's at. So I'm actually going to go into my code. I'm going to go to my player controller script. We have this private void on draw gizmos here at the bottom. I'm going to copy this, go to player combat, then under projectile attack, I'm going to paste this here. And we want it to draw a little gizmo at the projectile spawn point. And I want it to be a radius of, I don't know, 0.3f. Back in Unity, should draw a little circle there. That's too big. But go back into our code and I'll do 0.1f. And I want the color of this to be red. Okay, so we now have this projectile spawn point. We have the script set up to launch a projectile. So I'll press play and click the left mouse button and it is spawning projectiles. And they exist and keep going forever. If I point myself right, they are now or to left rather, they're now spawning in the opposite direction. Reason for that is our player controller, when we flip it, you can see it. The projectile spawn point moves and flips with the character. I'm going to select my projectile and I see that they're actually a little too big. Bigger than I want them to be. Yours can be whatever size you want, but they're bigger than I want them to be. I'm going to link the scale together and I'm going to decrease the size of them so they're a little bit smaller. Then up here where it overrides, I'm going to click this, click apply all. This makes it so every instance of that prefab will get those changes. for them to actually do something, I need to give them a collider. So I'm going to go add component. So with my projectile selected, rather, add component, physics 2D. I'm going to do a circle collider. And that seems about right. I'm going to set this to be a trigger. I'm going to go to my code into the projectile script, and I'm going to set up for on collision enter, or on trigger enter rather. So I'll do private void on trigger enter 2D. So on collision trigger enter 2D. We want to say if we collide with if the other object that we hit is a game object dot tag is equal to ground. So if we hit ground, then destroy this dot game object. So this says if we hit something that is ground, just destroy the projectiles. That way the projectiles don't exist forever. So that didn't quite work because we actually need to add in a tag for ground. We then need to select our grid, give that the tag ground, select our tile map, give that the tag ground, and select our platforms, give that the tag ground, and then override apply all. Now every one of the platforms is a ground. The last thing we need to do to make the projectile actually work when we collide with something is we need to give it a rigid body. Right now it doesn't have a rigid body, so it doesn't actually calculate things. So I need to go to add component, physics 2D, rigid body 2D. And we want this to have a gravity scale of 0. So that way it doesn't get pulled down. Then go to override, apply all. And as we hit a object with the tag ground, it will destroy that projectile. If we don't hit the ground, it will just keep going forever, which we can define how to handle that at a later point. But now we have a projectile. We just don't have anything to hit with it yet. So first off, in our moving platform script, here where we're setting the parent for if we enter collision, we actually need to go and make it so we can check to see if it's the player. So I'm going to go back into Unity, player character, the tag rather, set that to player. And then we'll do a check here and say, if collision dot game object dot tag is equal to player, then it will parent the object. And then we need to do the same thing here, where we only want to do this if our object is the player. That way we don't run into issues where if something else hits the platform, it will try and parent it. And then next we want to make it play a sound effect when we throw our projectile. So first thing we need to do is find the audio file that we want to work with. I'm going to work with this knife draw one. I like this sound. And then we need to set up the script to actually play that sound. So I'm going to go into my player sounds. I'm going to create a new audio clip, and this will be, I'll call it throw sound. And then we'll copy and paste to save some time. And we're going to have this one be called play throw sound. And it'll play the throw sound when we call it. Then I'm going to go to my game manager. I'm going to grab this observer. I'm going to copy that and go into my player combat script. Paste this here. And I'll call this one launch projectile. And when we do this, so when we instantiate, we're going to do launch projectile dot value equals true. Then launch projectile dot value. Launch projectile dot value equal to false right afterwards. So we're calling that event. We're saying, hey, we're launch something. Now back in Unity, I'm going to go to my player character. I'm going to go to my player sounds. I'm going to assign that knife draw sound for the throw sound. And then player combat script, I'll expand that out. Hit the plus button there. And then when the player character, player combat, or player sounds rather, throw sound. Now that's a very annoying sound. I don't really like that after all, so I'm going to probably pick a different one. Yeah, I'll go with a different sound. I'll do knife sheath A, I guess. But there's probably a better one in here somewhere, but for now, it works.